Murmur Sea Otter damaged a $1 million yacht, but instead of being chased away, she became the port's most precious treasure. This is an unexpected encounter about love and tolerance. The protagonist of the story is a female sea otter named Kelly. In just a few days, she will give birth to her first litter. She should have been waiting quietly for labor in familiar waters, yet she made a bold decision to leave the home her family had inhabited for generations and venture into a human harbor. This seemingly rebellious act was no impulse. It was a choice Kelly made after careful consideration. In her eyes, the calm coastal waters were far more suitable for raising cubs than the perilous open sea. Before long, Kelly gave birth to a daughter at the dock and officially became a sea otter mother. Over the next 6 months, the baby would be completely dependent on her. But quiet days were hard to come by at the busy dock. It was summer, and wealthy residents of California often sailed their yachts here to host parties. The roar of engines, blaring music, and noisy crowds always kept the little sea otter awake. To soothe the baby in her arms, Kelly hadn't eaten a thing since giving birth. Now, she had to go into the water to find food. The little one lay where her mother would enter the water, crying non-stop. Kelly quickly caught a crab and ate it nearby, but the anxious cries of her cub on the shore left her unable to eat in peace. She had no choice but to take the baby with her first. This was the little sea otter's first time in the water. Kelly carefully held her cub on her belly. As the waves gently rocked them, the little one gradually relaxed and soon drifted into a sweet sleep. But carrying the baby meant Kelly couldn't search for food. So, while the baby slept soundly, she gently placed the cub back on the shore. Unfazed, the little one continued to sleep deeply. Seizing the chance, Kelly hurried to eat. In the days that followed, before every trip into the water, Kelly would first lull her cub to sleep. She balanced caring for the baby and foraging with perfect precision. Though busy, she found joy in it. Looking out along the coastline, the wild ocean beyond was Kelly's hometown. Her sea otter family had lived there for generations. The seawater was icy cold year-round, so they spent hours each day lying on the water surface, sunbathing. To avoid being swept away by waves while dozing, the clever otters would wrap themselves in seaweed or hold hands to bathe together. Sunlight glistened on the clear sea, and they rose and fell gently with the waves, as if sleeping in a huge, warm cradle. Deep in the bay, there were dense kelp forests, and for sea otters, these forests hid countless treasures. Every day, they would come here to hunt for crabs and octopuses in the rock crevices. As seasoned food lovers, sea otters need to eat seafood equal to 1/3 of their body weight every day. Crab meat tastes delicious but is hard to catch, so to fill their bellies at every meal, they rely mostly on shellfish, which are more abundant. As the only marine animals that use tools, every sea otter carries a handy stone with them, storing it in a pouch under their arm when not in use, and taking it out to show off their skills during meals. This ability is a family heritage that every sea otter must learn. Mastering the basics alone takes at least 6 months. But the port where Kelly and her daughter lived had no kelp forests. There wasn't even a decent stone to be found. One day, a wealthy man named Jim was about to set sail. Instead of being trapped by tradition, the clever Kelly adapted her skills to the new environment. Before starting work, she would look around warily, afraid of being discovered by humans. If she was accidentally spotted, she would play dumb to get away with it. The damage Kelly caused to boat hulls cost thousands of dollars. Most boat owners chose to hang bottles to drive her away, but Jim was an exception. He not only allowed Kelly's little creations, but even enjoyed the warm moments spent with the mother and daughter otters. As the little sea otter grew day by day, food near the dock became harder and harder to find. This meant the mother and daughter would have to travel farther to forage. But first, Kelly had to teach her cub how to swim. The little one quickly learned the skill while floating and sinking. She began to try exploring the sea surface alone, but accidentally got stuck in an exhaust pipe. Luckily, her mother was nearby and pulled her out just in time. Autumn arrived, and the little sea otter grew stronger, able to explore larger areas of the sea. One early morning, just as dawn broke, Kelly took her cub to explore a new foraging spot. They arrived at a fishing dock on the outskirts of the harbor. This was the best foraging area nearby, but extremely dangerous for an inexperienced young otter. Kelly left her cub in a safe place and dived into the water alone to find food. She reached a seafood farm, where cages were filled with farmed abalones. Though Kelly couldn't open the iron cages directly, a large number of oysters and barnacles clung to the cages, making them a great free snack, easy to pull off with a little force. Occasionally, the scraps discarded by passing fishing boats were even more rare treats. However, This rich waters belonged to another male sea otter, who had a fearsome name, Pink Blue, after the unique pink-blue markings on his paws. He was short-tempered and highly aggressive, and many female otters had fallen victim to him. During mating, male otters usually bite the female's nose to control her, but Pink Blue took this to a terrifying extreme. He would hold females underwater until they drowned. Fortunately, Pink Blue was busy eating at the time and didn't notice the mother and daughter exploring his territory in the distance. Before long, the little sea otter turned 4 months old. Like all energetic, mischievous young troublemakers, she was lively and full of energy. She was just 2 months away from being independent. Every day, Kelly patiently taught her survival skills, showing the cub through her own example that any hard object could be a good tool for prying open shells, whether a stone or even an iron ladder. Soft wood, however, was not ideal, and elastic rubber tires worked even worse. But the little sea otter believed she had to try tools for herself to know what worked. So she embarked on a tool adventure, and in her excitement, she swam farther and farther without realizing it, gradually drifting out of her mother's sight. When Kelly couldn't find her cub, she called out anxiously. The little otter heard her mother's voice, but so did Pink Blue, who was wandering nearby. He reached the cub first and grabbed her. Desperate to save her child, Kelly had no choice but to trade the food she had worked so hard to catch for her daughter's release. The male otter got a free meal, but he had another motive for targeting the mother and daughter. He wanted to check if Kelly was ready to mate. Even though he knew nursing mothers were not in heat, he still pestered her endlessly. Tragedy finally struck on the 3rd day. Jim received a call from an aquarium, telling him that a severely injured female sea otter had been rescued. He rushed to the scene and immediately recognized Kelly. Pink Blue had bitten through her nose during an attempted forced mating. After emergency treatment, her condition was still not optimistic. Even more worrying was that her cub was nowhere to be found. A nursing cub, without its mother's protection, had little chance of survival. Jim was deeply concerned. He went to the dock every day to search, but the little sea otter never appeared. A month and a half later, good news arrived. Kelly had recovered from her injuries and was fit to be released back into the wild. When she returned to the harbor, she still chose to live at Jim's dock, but without her child by her side, she was always melancholy. Fate took a turn on a warm afternoon. A male sea otter, taking advantage of Pink Blue's absence, quietly sneaked into the dock and invited Kelly to pair up with him. Whether driven by instinct or weakness after her injury, Kelly agreed immediately. Luckily, her new partner was gentle in his behavior, making her feel at ease. Before long, they would have a new baby. Jim never gave up searching for the little sea otter. Finally, one evening, a familiar sound rang out. It was the little otter. Not only had she survived, but she had also mastered the boat repairing skills her mother had taught her. Even more surprisingly, she had even developed new tools. Everyone loved this little sea otter who had survived hardships. One day, just like her mother, she would pass down the tenacity and wisdom of life through the glistening waves, from generation to generation. Today, more and more sea otters live at the dock. They are not just permanent residents here. Their unique charm also attracts tourists from all over the world, bringing endless vitality to the coast and millions of dollars in tourism revenue.